Maybe revitalization is working incredibly well in your church. Maybe you're listening to this episode going, I think I've got it all figured out. Well, I don't, but that's why we have my dad with us, so that he can explain everything.
No way, Jose. No way. I didn't write the church revitalization checklist.
Well, I did write a book on it.
I didn't write the classic monograph on church revitalization called the Church Revitalization Checklist. This is not about your dad. This is about church revitalizing and Sam Rainer.
Well, thank you for the book plug. Glad to put it in people's hands. Yeah, Church Revitalization Checklist. I did write a book on it, but it's from years of experience and learning the hard way. And, well, we're going to talk about church revitalization today on Rainer on Leadership. But before we do, I want to talk about one of our sponsors. We love Tyndale. Great resources at Tyndale. Just about anything they put out is excellent. But they have a 1-year Bible for men and a 1-year Bible for women. The 1-year Bible for women and the 1-year Bible for men, they combine the best-selling daily Bible reading format with 2-minute daily devotionals. The 1-year Bible for women has devotionals written, well, just for women. And the 1-year Bible for men, it's for men. And so you've got this one-of-a-kind duo here in these Bibles. They feature the trusted and understandable New Living Translation. They've got daily readings that include a passage from the Old Testament, the New Testament, Psalms, and Proverbs. Each daily reading also includes a short devotional. So these Bibles can be paired together. This is why I like it. They can be paired together for couples devotions, but they're also perfect for individual daily devotional moments. This would make a great Mother's Day, Father's Day gift. This would make a great Christmas gift. This would make a great birthday gift. Hey, anniversary. How about this, guys? Go get a 1-year Bible for men. Go get a 1-year Bible for women. Both of you go through it together and then have some conversations around your devotionals together. It might be a very good spiritual discipline for you. I like this idea. I think our listeners need to check it out. Tyndale has given us the 1-year Bible for men and 1-year Bible for women. All right.
I like it.
Church revitalization. It's kind of a hot topic. That phrase, church revitalization, those two words, didn't even exist really like 20 years ago. We didn't talk about church revitalization.
It's certainly wanting a discipline. It's certainly wanting degrees at universities and seminaries. It's certainly wanting books that were written on it, although there was allusions to the same type of thing. But the phrase church revitalization is pretty
Turnaround was the word. Comeback was the word. Yeah. We used to talk about turnaround churches, that these churches that were on their decline and then they came back. But that's all of it.
The Vogues.
The Vogues?
Vogues. I think they were the group that sang Turn Around, Look at Me.
Oh, yes.
There's someone walking behind you. Turn around, look at me.
That sounds very creepy.
No, it's a good ballad. You want me to sing it?
Okay. We have much to talk about on this episode. So unfortunately, we don't have time to sing songs to everyone who's listening.
I understand. I'll be okay.
Listen, that's all I've ever done is church revitalization. I've not planted a church, so I really can't speak as an expert on church planting, but I can speak as somebody who has worked through some revitalizations, as someone who's made a lot of mistakes doing church revitalization. I started young. I did some dumb things, but through the School of Hard Knocks, I've learned that, hey, it can be done, and it is something that is worthwhile. But I think for a lot of people, it's just not working right now. It's a very difficult thing to revitalize the church.
And what we're attempting to do, Sam, maybe oversimplifying it, but we're saying if vitalization is not working in your church, well, it could be that one of the things is God's not quite there yet, and you just need to wait on him. So it could be a matter of timing, but there could be some reasons, some very basic reasons why revitalization is not taking place. And we're going to get into those. The first one is the leader has a short-term outlook. Well, I've been at my church for a year and a half or 2 years, and I haven't seen revitalization take place. I wish it could. Most of the time, it's much longer than that.
I'm approaching year 8 at West Bradenton. I'm just about finished. Well, at the time that this releases, I will be in year 8. I will have met my 7-year anniversary. So 7 years in.
You know how I remember roughly your anniversary is Joel's birth.
Yes, my son, we moved when he was like a week old. Ill-advised.
Your wife was,
For all of you guys out
yeah,
there still having kids and your wife is pregnant and she has a baby and then you move that week. Erin handled it fine and she did great, but I'd just say ill-advised. It wasn't it was God's timing. It wasn't the best timing. Sorry, honey. She doesn't listen to these podcasts anyway. So she doesn't. Josh and I on my other podcast, est.church, we always joke about Erin. She never listens, so she never get the jokes.
She will hear one day.
She will. I have some church members that listen to these things, and then they go tell her, and then I get in trouble. So yeah, it's that's how we know about my anniversary, because my son was born right when we moved. But my point is 7 years in, and I feel like I'm just now we had COVID. So, there's like a 2-year something there that did all sorts of wacky things to sorts of churches. That's true. But, they've said, 5 years is kind of where you start to hit your stride, maybe. And it can be.
But if you get through COVID, it's really 7 years.
Well, that's just it.
Start your stride.
Mine's been 7. Now, granted.
You're just beginning. In the words of Karen Carpenter,
I've only just begun. Now, lots of good things happened the last 7 years. Don't get me wrong. It's not like we're just now doing God's work.
Love that voice. I'm sorry, you're saying something, Sam?
Yes. Talking about God's work. Are you quoting 60 songs?
Okay.
I'm on the Bible.
Yes.
Where are you?
I'm in 1966.
You with Karen Carpenter. Because I'm talking about scripture and church revitalization. Come on, Dad.
Keep on going.
Don't have a short-term outlook. If you're thinking you're going to get something done in a year, it's probably too short of a time frame. I think a lot of guys, it can be a younger person problem, and people in their 20s have all this energy and they think, as I did, so I'm not putting you down too much if you're younger and listening to this, man, I thought I could do so much work in a year or two, and it ends up, there's an old adage, you overestimate what you can do in a year and you greatly underestimate what you can do in 5 years. And I look back now 7 years into this tenure that is West Bradenton, and man, I'm like, wow, we've really come a long way, but it took 7 years.
And I am glad that you are looking at the before and now. And that's a healthy thing to do. You're able to look back 7 years and see some things that have taken place. And that's a good exercise for many leaders once they get to this point.
I came to West Bradenton when I was 35 after I'd been pastoring for 11 years. So I had to run through a few churches, make a few mistakes, and even get fired in the process to kind of learn my lesson.
I'll just simply say the firing was not your mistake, but that's a story.
No, I didn't. I didn't do anything wrong. I stood up for something that was right, and there was a power group that didn't like it. So that being said, I had some short tenures, and there were many different reasons for that. Part of it was my problem, not all my problem, but I think part of what I was doing, I'd be at a church 2 years, and I'd get restless. I would get so restless. I think we're not making the progress.
I remember the conversations. Dad, I'm feeling restless. Oh, here we go. Dad, I'm feeling restless.
We're not doing what we need to do. This church isn't listening to me. We're not moving. Yeah, all those things. I felt all of those things. So part of the reason revitalization may not be working in your church, it might be working. You're just not giving it the time that it needs.
So the outlook can be short term, but please, Pastor, don't compare yourself to another church. Your church, don't compare your church to another church. Your church is unique. And that is an overused word. It's used for too many different things, but your church is unique. It has unique members. It has a unique context. It has a unique facility. It has a unique history. It has unique leadership. Everything about your church is unique. There is no reason you should be comparing yourself to other churches, especially when you're comparing yourself to churches that you perceive are healthier, growing faster, or where you would want to be.
Well, there's always a healthier church. There's always another church that's growing faster. Frankly, there's probably always a better church. That's just the nature of life. If you're making a comparison, you're not focusing on your church. And if you're not focusing on your church and the unique things that make up your church and its context, you're not leading a revitalization. So I understand, I want to learn from somebody else, but you're going to take that and apply it to your context and your congregation. But if you are feeling down or restless because you are constantly comparing, you're not leading. And
You are one. Sorry,
and I
go
was
on.
just going to
I talked
say,
over you.
and I've been there. I've done that. I can say this from experience. You know, there was a case where, and I can't give you any details. I was in a previous church comparing myself to another church, and then all sorts of problems surfaced in that other church. And I realized that it was a false comparison. Everything that I thought that I saw wasn't true. And so a lot of times when we're making these comparisons, you've idealized this other church. And if you were to dig into it, you would realize it's probably not as idealized as you're making it out to be.
You are one of the leaders in the incipient neighborhood church movement. I call it incipient because it's still in its early stages, but I still will call it a movement because I think it's gaining momentum. And basically, it is getting back to the fact that our address, God put us at our address for a reason, or put our church at our address for a reason. And that would tell you that if you are in the West Bradenton neighborhood or that part of town, your church is unique just because you're there. Every neighborhood puts a stamp on a church that says you're unique. Therefore, you cannot make comparisons because there's really no other neighborhood like yours, among other things. That's why the neighborhood church movement is so important.
Yeah, I'm very excited about what's happening in neighborhood churches. It's early and there's still a lot of work to do. And it's certainly not a foregone conclusion that we're going to see a great movement among neighborhood churches, but the opportunity is there. In fact, that's my next book, but we'll have to talk about that when it comes out. It's to the publisher,
Yes.
it's edited. Now we're going to the printing process. I'm really excited to be on neighborhood churches.
We did a podcast recently. We talked about a book that I had written about sharing the gospel with ease. But in that, not but no, I just said but again. In addition to that, we talked about evangelism and the priority. You don't revitalize a church without the gospel. You don't revitalize a church without sharing
You
the
can't.
gospel.
You
You don't
shouldn't.
revitalize a church without making evangelism a priority. So one of the reasons evangelism may not be working is you may not have made evangelism a priority in your church. And as we said in a previous podcast, fewer than 1 out of 100 churches have an ongoing evangelism emphasis. That's pretty stark.
It's not church revitalization unless evangelism is present. You
Yes.
might be doing something, but you're not doing real revitalization work. You have to have evangelism in the plan if you're going to do church revitalization, because we're talking about the sharing of the gospel. So I think a lot of people get swept into procedures, policies, facilities, structure, polity. All of those things are great, and they may need work. I know they needed work when I came to West Bradenton. All of those things did. But you're not really doing revitalization unless you're equipping your church to do evangelism and you yourself are doing the work of evangelism.
We have a new university called Church Answers University. We've talked about it a lot because we're excited about it a lot. And we're training, Church Answers University is training people around the globe, people who can't get or for other reasons don't desire to get a seminary college degree, and they want something that's affordable, accessible, and attainable. And so they sign up for this very affordable training, 10 courses, all the books supplied. I mean, it's really, really good. And you're teaching, or you have done all the work, and now people are watching you. You're teaching in church revitalization. You are preparing the people who go through Church Answers University for biblical church revitalization. And when I talk about biblical church revitalization, that means two things, among many others: evangelism and prayer. And if if you are not making prayer foundational in revitalization, it's not working because God's not working in it. That's a long way of saying what I just segued into evangelism and prayer.
You have to revitalize a church with evangelism. You have to revitalize a church with the foundation of prayer. In fact, I think if you focus on prayer and focus on evangelism, and you're like, those are the two things that I'm going to do, your church will naturally start to revitalize in other areas.
Yep, it's a leading spiritual indicator. I was about to say economic
If you've
indicator.
got
So
praying
leading,
people and if you've got people sharing their faith, guess what? The polity is going to work itself out in most cases. And we can always come up with some crazy, anomaly, of course. But in most cases,
sure.
if you're leading with prayer and you're leading with evangelism, the structure, the polity, the staff, the programs, the discipleship models, all of that will fall into place. Evangelism and prayer are leading indicators of revitalization. Polity, structure, and policies are lagging indicators. So you can't lead with structure. You have to lead with the spiritual fruit of prayer and evangelism.
That is why many times a young pastor or another pastor, a new pastor, will come in and that pastor will say, the most important thing I can do right now is to redo our bylaws.
I
And
see it all the
it
time.
may be needed, it may be needed, it may be necessary. But I ask those pastors, tell me what you're doing in evangelism and prayer right now.
Well, we're focused on the bylaws.
But we're focused on the bylaws. And that usually becomes a divisive issue because people in the church have different, many of them don't know the bylaws until you tell them about it. And then they fight over it.
You become a solution in search of a problem is many
Yes.
times what that is. I get that you got to put the legal stuff together and it's got to be in proper order. But if you go in and saying we're changing the polity of the church and we're changing the bylaws of the church, and that's how you're going to revitalize a church, well, in most cases you just lit a fuse that goes to a stick of dynamite is what you've done, and
Yes.
you're about to blow it up. So lead with evangelism, lead with prayer, and in most cases all of those other issues will lag behind, yes, and it may take a couple of years, 3 years, but they will come along. And I think that's what's often missed and why a lot of revitalizations don't work is because we end up starting with structural issues. And I think in most cases that's ill-advised.
What was the color of the carpet in your church before you ripped it out?
Well, it's a custom color called Bradenton Plum that we had created just for us.
Because nobody else
But
wanted
it
it.
might as well have been called Pepto-Bismol after all these years.
That's what it looked like. It looked like Pepto Bismol that had dirtied over the years. That's exactly what it looked
Yes,
like.
dirty
It looked like
Pepto-Bismol.
dirty Pepto Bismol. It did. I hadn't thought about that. So I no wonder I thought I could maybe get down on my knees and help my stomach to get better. It
But you
wow.
let me just tell you this: you would have needed Pepto Bismol when they were pulling it up because it was disgusting.
But here's something. It was obvious the moment you entered that sanctuary, that worship center. We got to do something with the carpet, and you got to do a lot of other things with the building. You didn't lead with those structural issues, even as obvious as they were. You led with relational and spiritual issues, and I think that's one of the reasons that the church is in revitalization now.
Believe it or not, I did lead with relational and spiritual issues. Yes, we even did evangelism training. Didn't have many attend, but for those that did, it was great. So we led with spiritual relational issues, and the church came to me and said, I think we need to change our bylaws to get up to speed. And I thought,
Mhm.
I don't know if I want to do this, but they insisted. And we had a group of people that helped rewrite the bylaws. I didn't get everything that I think needs to be in there, but the vast majority of it's very healthy. But if that was day one for me, I think I would have gotten a lot of trouble.
Let's go to this last point. Your church may not be revitalizing. It may not be working in your church if the leader becomes too discouraged with membership losses. Here is a fact. You will lose people in revitalization.
You're always losing people. Every church is always losing people. There's a natural churn I don't like it. And if you're actually leading and doing things, you're probably going to lose people. And sometimes you're going to lose key people and key givers, and it's hard. And it is discouraging. But you can't make decisions from a posture of discouragement. You can't let discouragement make the decisions for you. You're going to experience this, and it's going to be hard. But you have to lead out with prayer and evangelism. You have to lead out with what you believe God is telling you to do. And you can't let the discouragement start causing you to not do things that you know you need to be doing.
We're talking about why revitalization may not be working in your church. We've gone over 5 reasons that it possibly, some of them are foundational. We cannot cover all of the reasons. Once again, I want to point you to the Church Revitalization Checklist by Sam Rainer. It's a checklist for a reason. Go to it. There are so many other reasons that are there, but we've hit some foundational reasons that we wanted to make sure that you know. And also, this is a part of the foundational teaching that we do at Church Answers University to prepare men and women for ministry, whether you're a lay person or you're a pastor, whatever the case may be. And we currently have the certification or diploma in Christian ministry, and we have one in women's discipleship. So we have 2, and we'll have more in the future, but we want you to check those out. Hey, we also want you to check out Logos. According to a recent survey, 30% of evangelical churchgoers want more in-depth teaching. We've been talking about this in several podcasts. If you want to go deeper into the Word, Logos is the Bible study for you. Logos fuses powerful technology with biblical resources. You have access to so many tools, commentaries, seminary level courses, audio books, Bibles. You can watch it on your tablet, your desktop. It is incredible. 200,000 digital books from the world's top publisher in this software package. Logos is now more affordable. Listen to this. Get started for just $49 for this incredible library of resources. Go to logos.com/church answers. One more time. Logos.com, church answers/church answers, or look at the link in the show notes. Once again, thank you for being with us on Rainer on Leadership. I hope we've covered some issues that not only are important, but may encourage you as you lead your church in revitalization. Whether you're the pastor leader or you are the lay leader, I hope these things will be helpful to you. Keep coming back. We got a lot more information to share with you. We get more excited every week about what we want to share with our audience because we know you're making a difference. We want to resource you to make a difference in the kingdom of God. See you next week.